In this video, I want to talk to you about the Google two-way sync that you all have in your system. There's a few things I want to talk about. The first is, how do you see if you have an active Google two-way sync? Next thing I want to talk about is appointments and overlapping appointments with Coach's Console and the Google Calendar. I also want to talk about where you should edit those appointments, depending on where they're scheduled. And I want to talk about things that you probably should never do and we don't recommend that you do. So the first I want to show you is how to check if you have an active sync. So when you log in and you're in the calendar module, you can see here that my Google Calendar is showing up there. And if you go to sync instructions, it's going to say your Google two-way sync is now synchronized. So that's how you know that you do have a two-way sync and it is activated. So we'll go back to the calendar and you'll see I have some appointments here. One's a Google appointment and the others are Coach's Console. You can tell because these are orange, which means they are in the Coach's Console. The Google appointment is going to show whatever color shows here next to my calendar. That's what color these appointments are going to show in. So the first thing I want to show you is the fact that you can overlap appointments from the Coach's Console that are show a Google appointment. So let's say this appointment with Cameron, we're going to edit this and we're going to change it from 11 o'clock to 10 o'clock because he needs to change his appointment time. He can't meet us at 11. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to show you that if you look, these do overlap. So the reason this happens is the Coach's Console does not recognize a Google appointment as an unavailable time. Therefore, you can schedule a block of available time or an appointment with a client at the same time as you have a Google appointment. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this appointment just for this video. The next thing I want to show you is when you have an appointment that you've made with a client in the Coach's Console, if you edit that appointment in your Google Calendar, what can happen sometimes is the appointment will lose the connection with that client. So right now we're going to look at this, and in Google, because we're out running errands or something and we don't have our Coach's Console pulled up, and Charity calls and says, hey, I need to meet on Wednesday instead of Thursday. Can we change that? So we're going to go into our Google Calendar that we have already on our phone. We're going to change this and we're going to say, sure, we can meet on Wednesday instead of Thursday. So we're going to go ahead and save that. We're not going to send that for this. And you'll show in your Google Calendar that these overlap, which you're okay with. And when you go back to your Coach's Console and you sync the two calendars, you'll see that this now overlaps. And the one thing that you want to make sure you check is if you open this, you're going to want to edit it and make sure it is still indeed scheduled for your client. Now, sometimes what will happen is when you edit an appointment in Google, this is no longer scheduled with a client. It's now scheduled with neither. So that means that if this has changed when you make that edit in Google Calendar, so it'll show that it's not attached to that client, even though this may still say Charity McMahon. When you look under Charity, then you'll see that that appointment's not scheduled, which means that, like I said, the call strategy won't go out, the confirmation email won't go out, the reminder email won't go out. So you want to make sure if you change any of your client appointments that you do so in the Coach's Console calendar. Now, this one actually did not disconnect, but it does happen, and we wanted you to be aware of how that works and why that happens. So when this may say with Charity McMahon, but it doesn't show up on your dashboard as an appointment with that client, and it doesn't show up under your client's name, that is the reason, so you're aware of that. Another thing, if you have a sync issue and for some reason your two calendars aren't talking to each other and you have appointments that aren't showing Google, or you have appointments in Google that aren't showing in your Coach's Console, the last thing you want to do is click this disconnect button. It can interfere with your overall sync and how that works. What you really want to do if you have an issue like that is go down here and click on the question mark and you're going to want to open a ticket and submit it to the help desk and let them know that your two calendars are not talking, and we can get that fixed for you. But like I said, please do not click this disconnect button. It can mess up any sync that you have, and you may have to start over, which is a lot of work. Now, if you just have a one-way sync with Google, which means your Coaches Console is only sending appointments to Google and not vice versa, then you could disconnect this. It's not going to matter. It's the two-way sync that we ask that you not click the disconnect button. I do also want to let you know that we're working on the calendar, and we are working on the fact that you um, currently are able to overlap these appointments, and soon we'll have an update that will not let this happen. But in the meantime, we wanted to let you know that this is how it works right now. So a couple things to stress is make sure that you remember you can book Coaches Console calendars at the same time as a Google Calendar appointment. Please don't hit the disconnect button if your calendars aren't talking to each other. And also, if you make any changes to a Coaches Console, to a client appointment or a group appointment, make sure you do that through the Coaches Console and not through Google. And as always, if you have any questions or issues, go down here, click on the question mark, and submit a ticket to the help desk.